Happy Saturday. Man, it has been hot. Do you hear me? Hot these last couple of days. Matter of fact, it's hot now. So you are going to see me drinking water in this video because it's hot. And it's taking a toll on me and my plants, my lovelies. So today's video, I want to talk about the difference between underwatering and your plant needing water and what some signs to look for. Now, I have some plants that are a little bit harder to read when it comes to underwatering. So I'm going to give you some examples. She is actually one that has recovered from me underwatering, but I'm going to show you an example of a Manjula that has been underwatered, aka damaged. And we're going to talk through what my signs were and what I did to fix it. Okay, so before we get started though, let me introduce myself. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Yvette Boone. I'm a recovering software engineer and a lifelong creative hobbyist and plant enthusiast. And here on this channel, we create a safe space for Black women to incorporate creative hobbies into their wellness practice. And that includes plants, okay? So I am a plant mom to my heart. I love my plants. My plants have bring me so much joy. They are literally my happy place at times, right? And last year I decided that I wanted to switch my soil. And in switching my soil, it meant that I went from an overwaterer to an underwater. And there are a lot of factors that went into that. I, changed from a pithy soil to a more chunkier soil. I added some other things in it that kind of helped with airflow. And so I needed to change my approach on when I noticed that my plants were drying out. And I missed the mark on some. So I want to share that just in case you're going through the same thing and you might need some help figuring out if your plant is underwater. So first off, let me tell you the difference, what I feel like the difference between your plant needing water and being underwater. So the difference to me is when a plant needs to be watered, if you water it, then it'll perk back up. Everything, it goes right back to normal. Everything is fine. The plant doesn't skip a beat. The plant is not mad. But when you have gone too long without watering, or too many times you've let it get underwatered for too long, then it's going to start showing signs of stress. And I will show you, you see this leaf right here where it's yellow on the tip? It's got a little yellowing going on. I believe this is a sign of underwatering this plant. Plus it sort of has a little bit of a curl. That curl doesn't necessarily go away. To me, that's a sign of damage. Now, it's not so much damage that the plant has died or that it's not growing, but it's telling me that I need to water this plant more often. So the signs, what are the signs that my plants were being underwatered? One, the leaves were wilting. Now, this is one of my favorite plants to let me know. She is very vocal. And the reason I love her is because she's vocal and she lets me know when she needs to be watered. She starts wilting super early in her watering process. That is a sign that she's showing stress. Right? If I water her right away and I don't let her stay wilting, because I know that if she's wilting even a little bit, it's time to water her. Don't wait another week. A week would be too long. Matter of fact, in the next hour, she's probably going to be wilting even more. So this is why I love the peace lily, because the peace lily lets you know early on. So wilting is definitely a sign that your plant needs to be watered. If your plant is wilting and wilting and wilting and you water it and it still doesn't perk up within a day or so, like if it's really wilted really bad, you might want to give it at least 24 hours. But if it's wilting and you water it and it doesn't bounce back, you might have underwatered your plant, meaning that you might have missed the watering for so long that you have caused some permanent damage. If you like this content, don't forget to hit that like button. And because you like this content, you would absolutely love our community. Hit that subscribe button, and for a deeper connection, just sign up for my newsletter. Link is in the description. All right, let's get back into it. Okay. Another sign of underwatering is dry, cracked soil. Now, in context, right? All of my snake plants, my ZZ plants, my cactus, which I don't think I have any cactus, but even my succulents, I allow that soil to dry completely out. But even that has a limit, right? If the soil has gotten so dry that it is just cracked and it's looking really, really bad, it's probably gone a little too far. Your plant probably wanted some water at some time before now, right? But that's a sign that your plant, it needs water. And if you let it go too long, then I would say it would be a sign that it's been underwatered, right? And we talked about this plant here. This is my Scindapsus. And as you can tell, there's some underlying yellowing. I'm gonna show you another example of an underwatered Scindapsus. I think this is one of the harder ones. It's a fungus net in here. It's one of the harder ones to be able to see the underwatering because they sort of bounce back, but you can see the yellowing in this. In fact, I'm gonna go get another Scindapsus so I can show you the yellowing. Like I said, this is not permanent damage. It's not permanent in the sense where the plant has stopped growing. And yes, this is my baby. I love her so much. But she's showing signs. See that yellowing on that leaf? She's showing signs. Look at the yellow stems in there. Now the leaf still looks good, right? Everything, if you didn't know any better, you would think this plant was absolutely fine. But she's showing signs of stress because of the yellowing. And I know it's not overwatering. Don't do that. I know it's not. There's a better, look at this leaf. Look at this leaf. You look at it from that end, you can see the yellowing on the top. But from this side, you can see the yellowing up the stem here. That's not the stem, that's the petiole. Same here. You see that petiole is yellow? You see that yellowing? One place to always look is on the back of your leaves, right? You look at it from the front, it doesn't look that bad, but the back always tells a story. So this is signs, there she go, trying to be friends down here with other plants. This is signs that she was underwatered and she was damaged by the underwatering. So definitely always look at your leaves. That's usually one of your first indicators. So that should have been one of my first indicators. But just know that I'm taking everything in context. I know that my soil is loose and I haven't watered this plant in, say, a week. Then if I'm seeing yellowing on my plant, even after I watered it and it's doing well, it's probably because I underwatered the plant. Hot, y'all, hot. Okay, so let's talk about that just for a bit. You know, I think one of the biggest things about being a new plant parent, which I'm not a new plant parent, but I always take each plant as a new experience, right? Because I like experimenting with my plants. Now, I will say this much, is that it's so confusing because, you know, it's like, well, what are the signs for underwatering? Yellowing leaves, this, drooping. Look, and it's like, well, what are the signs for overwatering your plant? Yellowing leaves, drooping, wilting. And it's like, well, it's the same. How am I supposed to know? One is you kind of have to take, if not a physical note, a mental note of your watering, your light, your air, right? Because all of those things are going to help you figure out whether or not you're underwatering or overwatering. And I would say also looking at your other plants, right? If you know that you have that same plant in another pot and you're doing the same thing to both and they're both in the same place, you know that might be something else besides the watering, right? So to me, I always take that logical type approach, and you'll notice that in the way I care for my plants is that I like to take the logical approach to things. I like to take that scientific approach because for me, that's more comfortable than just sort of being Like, oh, I think she needs more water, because I think they all need more water until they start rotting and dying. So that's why I needed to take that approach. Okay, now for me, when it comes to, and I'll give you an example. Ooh, can I give you an example? Hopefully it'll show up on camera. But this leaf right here, it might not be showing signs right now. Oh, that sucks. This is what happens when you, maybe this one. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's wrinkling. So these are Hoyas. They are also called the wax plant. They are very fleshy, meaning that they have very thick leaves, right? This is not the kind of leaf that's going to blow in the wind like this, right? This is the kind of leaf that if it was a Dorito, you could pick up a lot of salsa with it, right? So when they start being underwatered, they will start wrinkling, just like a jade or maybe even a succulent, right? They start, because their leaves are mostly water, they're made up of a lot of water, that when that water starts to decrease, you'll notice that the skin starts to wrinkle. And so if you start seeing wrinkling in your plants, especially if they are fleshy plants like the ones I mentioned, then that might be a clear sign that it needs to be watered. So this one is giving clear signs that she needs to be watered. Although her wrinkling is not showing up. What happened was I let this go for far too long. If you notice, she has some bleached out leaves, and that is a difference. It's a difference between a yellowing leaf and a bleached out leaf. And this one is bleached out, and I know she's bleached out because she was getting a lot of sun. This is very firm. It has never wrinkled. It's not browning in any way. It literally is sort of just bleaching out the chlorophyll that's in the leaf. But she has been underwatered in the past, and when she underwaters, she will show wrinkling in her leaves. So this is my Hoya Crinkle 8. This is another example of a Hoya that was wrinkled really badly, but she bounced back. I don't see, you cannot tell it from the front. You have to look at the back of the leaves, and I can't really see any signs of permanent damage on her any longer. But at one point, especially once, okay, so the story behind this plant, she needs to be watered too. The story behind this plant is that she wasn't growing, and because she wasn't growing, I was like, something is going on. I know she was getting a lot of light. You can kind of see the difference between this coloring of this leaf, this coloring here, and these here. What was happening, she was getting way too much sun, and because she was getting way too much sun and not enough water for the amount of sun that she was getting, she just stopped growing. And so I pulled her out of her soil, cut her up, propagated her really, really well. And then once I grew those roots, I repotted the whole thing. And look, she's giving me new growth. I have not seen new growth on this plant in like a good 18 months or so. So this is a really good sign. She is really enjoying life again. I put her in a less bright location, and because I have a clear pot, I can see the difference in her soil. Let me see if I can make that a little bit better. So I'm gonna show you the difference between this soil and one that is freshly watered. So this is the same soil, right? This is it dry, and this is it wet. You see the color difference in that? Exact same soil. It helps me when I have context like this, when I can say, oh, I think this might be wet, and I have something to look at it and go, okay, this is what wet soil looks like. So yes, this is dry. Of course, I could tell a difference in the weight of the pot, but it also helps if you have a visual reference as well too. One of the things that I'm facing now especially with my Hoyas, is that because they carry so much water in the leaves, the weight of the plant doesn't feel that much difference. when the soil is wet because they carry so much water in their leaves. So I need another indicator like the coloring of the soil. And you know, you can always stick your finger in there. I'm not a huge fan. I don't like sticking my finger in, especially when I have nails. So I will use a stick, and sometimes the stick method works perfectly. But yeah, this is my Hoya Chelsea. Yeah, Hoya Chelsea. She's bouncing back, and she was showing me signs of underwatering by her leaves wrinkling. Okay, so I have, let's see, notes. Okay, so I have a couple of plants that I want to show you that are showing signs of damage due to underwatering. Like I said, this is my Manjula. She was at one point damaged from underwatering. I lost a lot of leaves, but I started watering her more often, and you can look at her and see that she's filling out really, really well. This brown in here this is just Manjula being Manjulaing. She's just Manjulaing. When they have this white on the leaves like this, that white will brown, and it's just nothing you can do about that. You just, I guess if I had maybe a more humid environment, maybe it wouldn't brown as much. But to be fair, I don't even know that that would help. I do have a yellow leaf in there, but she just, okay. Yeah, that's her. She's probably gonna need to be watered within the next day. Okay, this is her reverted sidekick. This is a baby from that plant. This was all the reverted leaves. They all had no variegation in them. So I cut them off and made a new plant out of them. And I started underwatering this early on because I didn't realize that I was underwatering it. That's just the bottom line. It didn't, even with all the things that I was doing, I didn't have as much context to help guide me through. I was watering my mother plant of the Manjula, this one here. I was watering her often because she was still in some old soil. And then when I switched her over, I continued to water her often because that's what I was doing. And when I had the babies, when I combined the babies with the mother, I up potted the whole thing, and the weight of the 8-inch threw me off so much that I couldn't tell the weight of when it was dry. And by the time it got light enough for me to notice, it was too far gone. So with this one, even though she was a smaller pot and I could have been able to tell, I still didn't. But the same thing happened with her. I took her cuttings, I put all her propagations together into this 5-inch pot, and I thought I was watering it enough, and apparently I was not. So here recently, like within the last maybe 3 or 4 months, I had been experimenting with watering her more often. When I watered her more often, I noticed that more of her leaves came in undamaged. Do you see all of this brown, this dried up, like crispy bits on the leaves? Now, Manjulas are funny acting like that to some degree, but this is the whole leaf. Like that, it's not like it broke off. Look at that. That's the whole leaf. That's how it formed. This is because as this baby was forming, this plant was not getting enough water, and the plant was smart enough to say, abort that whole mission because I'm not getting enough water to sustain this thing. So just stop. And so what I noticed is that when I started watering more often, I got a bigger leaf. Right now, is she at the point where she is completely well? No. And on top of the fact that I've noticed it's been a little warmer in my house than normal. So even with my increased watering, I might need to do a little bit more because it's actually warm enough in the house where it's starting to dry up my pots. Which is fine. I just need to water more often, which I don't have a problem with anyway. So I think I'm going to actually water these two today just because, I think it would be a good idea. But her roots are not suffering. She got roots coming out the bottom, right? These are roots coming through here. So she's growing. It's just that I need to do a little bit more to keep up with her. I got a couple of more examples of hard to tell underwater plants. Okay, I know I'm not the only one. But this is my snake plant. She's got babies in here. I just noticed that. I don't get a chance to look at her that much because she's got babies in all of these. Look. I don't get a chance to look at her as often because, you know, she'd be in the other room. But you see the curled leaves? Let's see, where is the curled leaves? See how that's curling? See how that's curling in on itself, and it's got big hard wrinkles in it? No matter what I do to this plant, no matter how much I water it, that damage is done. It's not going to revert back. And so this is a clear indicator that this plant has been damaged due to underwatering. It's not rotting out. Now, to be fair, this one might have rotted out because I let the roots go too long without water, because this is one of the problems with underwatering. To be fair, underwatering to me is better than overwatering because you can bounce back from it, and we're going to talk about that and how you fix it. Matter of fact, let's talk about that now. So how did I fix it? How do I fix it? You can try, if you notice that you underwater the plant, what I like to do is water it just enough to moisten the soil. I'm not saturating it. I'm watering it just enough to moisten the soil. If I notice that the plant responds to that little bit of water, then I just go ahead on and give it more water, and I'm like, okay, we dodged the bullet. But if it doesn't, and I'll show you another example of that, if it doesn't respond to that, then we have to propagate. But this is showing me right now that no amount of water I'm going to add to this is going to make this bounce back. It's done. Snake plants might be a little bit of a different breed in the sense that once it's damaged to this extent, it's not going to undamage. Now, will it die? No. Will it continue to move on? Yes. Right? It might take a little time though for those roots to grow for that specific plant, right? But other than that, it will grow back and it will do pretty well. But I have another example of a Hoya that I needed to propagate, and let me go get that. So my Hoya Bella, oh, she was so cute. She was so cute, okay? This is her ride or die right here. And they were both looking like this. And all of a sudden, my Hoya Bella stopped responding to my Hoya, this Hoya Bella. This is the Louis Bois. This is just the regular Hoya Bella, variegata. She stopped responding. Ooh, I see new growth. She stopped responding to her being watered, and I knew something was wrong. So I've been watering her regularly. I didn't think I had even missed a watering, but because I knew the signs of when a plant was underwatered, I was able to save her. So the signs are, like I said, I would water her, and when I touched her leaves, they were still soft, like they didn't firm up. Like these things have a spine down the back part of them, and when you water them well, that spine gets filled with water and it stiffens up. Well, apparently I was letting mine go too soft for too long, and so her roots died. So dry rot, right? And what was happening is I was watering the plant, but it wasn't responding. It wasn't watering. It wasn't pulling water in. So I decided I was going to cut it. And that's exactly what I did. I cut them up into smaller pieces. And I got some root action going on here. But I do have one piece in here. Oh, she's got a root right here. I don't want to take it out. But I will. Okay. Let's do it. Okay, let me show you this first, and then I'll go back and show you that. This is the mother part of the plant, the mother plant of the plant. And I took it out the soil, and I put the whole thing in water. And you see what's happening, right? These roots all here are dead. These white pretty roots that are coming in, those are the ones that are alive. So at some point, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to cut all of this dead material off. I'm going to let these roots grow a little bit more. And then I'm going to repot this whole thing. I stuck her in with a piece of pothos. I stuck her in with a piece of pothos to kind of help, her roots come on and grow. But let me show you this one little piece that is refusing to root. Even though she has a root, it's actually up here in the, you still can't see it. Yeah, this little piece right here. There you go. She's got a root, but it's not in the water. She's got something going on down here, so I'm gonna trust the process. Her leaves are nice and firm, so I'm gonna trust the process, and I'm not gonna stress too much about it. I'm gonna stick her right on back down here. One of the reasons I don't like taking them out is because whatever is happening with them is working, and I don't want to disturb it like I know better. So I might put some more water in this and let her be until I get a little bit more root on the mother plant, and then I'm gonna pot her up. But yeah, one of the signs definitely was to make sure that something is happening when you give it that little bit of water. So for this plant, I did the same thing. I watered it a little bit, and then I came back within 24 hours and I checked to see whether or not that plant was responding to that water. And when it wasn't, I said, okay, before I just uproot the plant, let me give it another 12 or 24 hours. I let that happen. I checked on it again, and she still didn't respond. So I knew at that point I needed to get that plant out of that soil, because if not, it was just gonna rot, right? It's not gonna, it's possible it could push out roots and root in between waterings, but I didn't want to take that chance. And I know how finicky sometimes these things can be. So I just went ahead and took it all out the soil, because nothing was wrong with the soil. It was that I pushed it too long or let her dry out for too long in between waterings, and she didn't like that. So I cut her, propagated her. She's growing roots now. I will have a bigger plant, because I didn't lose any of it, to be fair. I will have a bigger plant in the end, and I think she will be happier because she will have more roots, right? More roots per plant piece, right? This was one plant, one piece of a plant. And so by me cutting this and getting more than one root system, then I think it'll give this plant a better chance to grow back fuller and thicker and prettier, like I love my plant, and flower for that fact, because I think she did have a peduncle, but she blasted it. Okay, so let me go over really one more time what the signs for underwatering is. It's wilty leaves that are sort of drooping, sort of wilting. They might even be yellowing, maybe even getting some brown crispiness on them. But take it in context. Know your plant. For instance, my calathea gets brown tip leaves too, but I know that's not anything to do with her watering as much as it is her humidity. So I'm taking those things into context. And I knew that for me, it was a bigger chance of a plant being underwatered when I experienced this on some of my other plants. So for plants like my Scindapsus, when I see curling that no matter how much I water, it doesn't uncurl, or I see yellow, like an undertone of yellow to the leaf, then I know that plant has probably experienced some underwatering, which is why I love to have clear pots, because then I can go and look at the roots and I can tell, does it have a strong root system? Look at those beautiful roots in there. Yeah, some of these are a little, browny or not so white and pretty, but the bottom part where the new roots are, they're nice and white and pretty, and I know that that's enough to support this plant. So I know that even if I underwater for one time or so, I know this plant is not damaged to the point where it can't bounce back. But that did give me, if I'm looking at all of these stems in here, I see a little tinge of yellow, right? So that's giving me an indicator, you know what? Pay more attention to this plant and water it just a smidge more often, right? For me, it's not about how much water I give my plants, because I don't give them a dollop. I rinse and I thoroughly soak my plants. I make sure that even if I water them from the top, which is kind of rare, but even if I water them from the top, I let them sit in it for a little bit so that that water can come through and then come back up, and they fill in that pot. And so that pot is nice and moist by the time it's done, and my leaves are nice and wet. And this time of the year in the summer, actually I do it all year, but this summer I seem to do it more often than any other time. It's I take a lot of my plants to the shower and I give them a good old overhead spray up under the leaves, you know, any kind of pest or eggs or whatever is going on. We gonna blast them off. We're gonna make sure that the leaves get a nice good watering and the soil gets a nice good watering. I can flush out any kind of extra salts that get built up in the soil. And so for me, this is the time of the year where I like to do that quite a bit with my plants. Pretty much every watering, if not every other watering. So yes, she has been underwatered. We were trying some things, but she bounced back. She's a strong plant. She bounced back really, really well. This is my Scindapsus Splash, and I love her leaves. Love them, love them, love them. So I'm expecting her to grow back and be beautiful. I really wanted to share that little bit of information with you guys. Like I said, I have gone from an overwaterer to an underwaterer, and pretty much it's because I changed my soil. But it could be sometimes the season change. It could be that you might have some extra things going on in your life and your watering schedule might be a little different because, you know, you don't have as much time, or even if you do have enough time, your attention is somewhere else. I guess for me, what helped was to know what the signs of underwater and what it looked like when a plant was underwatered and if it was damaged. Because if it's damaged, then for me, I don't want to let that plant sit in that soil and die. And I'll give you a good example, and that's my sterling. My sterling, she's growing, look at her. My sterling sat in that soil, and I kept hoping that she was gonna bounce back, and she just kept dying and dying and dying and dying. And so eventually we got some new growth. Look. Look at that little green thing coming out of there. So I let her sit in that soil, and I didn't water her, and I wasn't paying attention. But now I can see a little bit better. I can see she has some new growth, and I am still being a little cautious with this soil because I rotted some out by overwatering them or putting them in too much water. Well, I was trying to propagate those in water, so that's a whole different thing. But it's still, my brain is still like, no, not too much water. So anywho, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to give her a little bit more water because it has been super hot. And I'm still going to watch her really carefully. So hopefully I have shared some information with you guys. If you are struggling with underwatering, that maybe those are some things that you can look for, some little like hacks that you can use to see if underwatering is your issue. To be fair, some of the symptoms look the same from the outside, but the difference between underwatering and watering is the soil. If your soil is dry before you do anything to the plant, then it's probably not overwatering. Although, this is the part I hate when it's like, oh, it depends. If your plant was underwater before and you watered it, then you don't have many, if any, roots in that soil. And then it can start to look like overwater because now you have wetness near your plant or on your plant when it doesn't have roots to pull that in. So, like I said, paying attention to your leaves, paying attention to your soil, and take it in context as to what was going on with your plant before you watered it. If you can't remember the last time you watered it, maybe start writing it down, because I'm going to be honest with you, my brain when it was 30 was sharp, okay? But child, I have to remember which videos I'm going to watch. I don't have time to be remembering if I watered that plant yesterday or 3 days ago or 3 weeks ago. Anywho, hopefully this helped you guys. I know it definitely helped me. I have messed this up plenty of times, enough times to know that getting it right is important. And it's easy once you realize that it's just a matter of just paying attention to the the soil, the leaves, and reminding yourself of the story of what's going on with that pot. So if no one else has said it to you today, have a great day. Bye. Let's get back into this baby. She heavy though, y'all. Look, she big too, boy. I don't know that you got the whole thing on camera, but she is big. She's a big girl. Okay. Here, oh my gosh. Girl, a little lighter do you right. She's so cute. Girl, we're gonna have a cute plant before it's all over with. Okay, stay focused. Yeah. Ooh. Look. That's a baby.